Hello everyone, I am Haccp. I am the Food Technology first year student of Department of Dairy Science and Food Technology under Institute of Agricultural Science, Banaras Hindu University. Today I am going to discuss about the different food safety systems such as Haccp, Vaccp and Taccp. Let's go through the slides. Let's go through food safety in brief. Food safety refers to the routines in the preparation, handling and storage of food meant to prevent foodborne illness and injury. From farm to fork, food products may encounter any number of health hazards during their journey from supply chain. Food served or sold to consumers basically needs to be safe to eat. The food safety is a primary concern for everyone, and assurance of safe and wholesome food is the moral responsibility of each and every person who handles food. Let's go through the acronyms of Haccp, Vaccp and Taccp. Haccp is the hazard analysis critical control point, where Taccp is the threat analysis critical control point, and Vaccp is the vulnerability assessment critical control point. Let's go through the introduction to Haccp, Vaccp and Taccp. Haccp principles have not been routinely used to detect or mitigate against a deliberate attack on the whole supply chain. Threat assessment critical control point Taccp and vulnerability assessment critical control point Vaccp are methodologies that align with the principles of Haccp but specifically look at the threats and vulnerabilities posed to a business. The principles behind Taccp and Vaccp are therefore not significantly different from Haccp. However, the scope of both Taccp and Vaccp are different from Haccp, and therefore guidance is useful in how to implement both systems. Both Taccp and Vaccp use the same risk management approach, but there are subtle differences between the two. Threat assessment and critical control point Taccp helps food producers to identify weak points in their supply chain and processing activities that may be open to intentional and malicious attack. The Taccp protocol focuses on tampering, intentional adulteration of food and food defense. Vulnerability assessment critical control point Vaccp focuses on food frauds as well, but widens the scope to include the systematic prevention of any potential adulteration of food, whether intentional or not, by identifying the vulnerable points in the supply chain. Vaccp is especially concerned with economically motivated adulteration. Example of supply chain risk include product substitution, unapproved product enhancement, counterfeiting, and stolen goods. Let's make a detailed look of Haccp, Vaccp and Taccp. Haccp always focuses on food safety and hazards. It is used for the prevention of unintentional or accidental adulteration. It is a science-based system, and it is used to prevent foodborne illness. Vaccp always focuses on food frauds and vulnerability. It is used for the prevention of intentional adulteration. It is an economically motivated system, where Taccp always focuses on food defenses and threats. It is used for the prevention of intentional adulteration like Vaccp. It is a behaviorally or ideologically motivated system. Let's go through Haccp in detail. Haccp is a logical and scientific approach to food safety. It helps procedures to prevent customers from foodborne illness. It is act as a proactive rather than reactive. It is a science-based and risk-based system. It is a stepwise process. It identifies hazards. It installs preventative measures to eliminate or reduce hazards in food. It is an essential tool for ensuring that commercial food processors make a safe final product. I think we all are familiar with the 7 principles of Haccp. The 7 principles are identifying or assessing the hazards, establish critical control points, establish the critical limits, establish monitoring procedures, establish corrective action, verification procedures, and record keeping. Now let's discuss how Vaccp and Taccp help an organization. Here, Vaccp and Taccp reduces the likelihood of a deliberate malicious attack. If an attack occurs, these Vaccp and Taccp reduce the impact on a business of that attack. It protects an organization reputation. It reassures customers that the organization is managing appropriately the risk in the supply chain and demonstrate due diligence. Demonstrate that the responsible precautions are in place to protect the supply chain. Let's go through Taccp in detail. Taccp, that is threat assessment critical control point, reduces the likelihood, that is the chance, and consequence, that is the impact of a deliberate attack. It protects organizational reputation. It reassures customers and public that proportionate steps are in place to protect food. Demonstrate that reasonable precautions are taken and due diligence is exercised in protecting food. Now let's discuss different threats of Taccp. They are espionage, economically motivated adulteration, malicious contamination, extortion, counterfeiting, and cybercrime. Now let's go through the different methods of threat assessment. First one is assess the potential threats in supply chain and process. Second is develop an appropriate set of control measures for each identified threat. Next is implement the controls and monitor them regularly. And next is evaluate the existing control measures and update them as necessary. The fifth one is provide staff training on Taccp and use the Taccp risk assessment checklist. And the final one is document all process findings and changes to create an audit trail. Now let's go through Vaccp. Vaccp is a management process to defend the food supply chain from any form of dishonest conduct that impacts detrimentally on the quantity or authenticity of food and drink. The focus is more on adulteration for financial gain in the supply chain. Example, product substitution, bulking out with a cheaper ingredient. While discussing about Vaccp, the main two terms that comes are food frauds and vulnerability. Food frauds is a collective term used to encompass the deliberate and intentional substitution, addition, tampering, or misrepresentation of food ingredients, or food packaging, or false or misleading statements made about a product for economic gain that could impact consumer health. Vulnerability is otherwise known as susceptibility or exposure to a food fraud risk, which is regarded as a gap or deficiency that could place health at risk if not addressed. Now let's discuss different frauds that we assess in Vaccp. First one is mislabeling, dilution, grey market production or theft, unapproved enhancements, substitution, and concealment. Now let's discuss these terms in detail. Substitution is when a food product is replaced with a cheaper or lower quality product that is similar but inferior. Example, olive oil is being replaced with sunflower oil. Next is concealment.
It is hiding of low quality of food ingredients or product. Example, poultry may be injected with the antibiotics to mask disease and reduce bacterial load during quality testing. Third is unapproved enhancement. It is the process of adding unknown and undeclared compounds to food product in order to enhance their quality attributes. Next is dilution. Example for dilution are olive oil is mixed with other type of oil, wine with grape blend and fruit juice diluted in water, then mixed with other ingredient to produce a similar taste while increasing the volume. Mislabeling, the examples for mislabeling are horse meat mixed with beef but labeled and sold as beef. Organic food being sold but found to have traces of non-organic ingredients, and mislabeled seafood being sold in the market. Theft is legitimate product is stolen and passed off as legitimately produced. Fraudulent product is distributed outside of regulated or controlled supply chain. Here, the stolen products are mixed with legitimate products. Now let's discuss how to implement Vaccp in a food safety system. First one is conduct a risk analysis, evaluate any significant risk and exposures, determine the critical point for controlling the fraud, determine procedures and technical means of verifying each critical point to control security, determine the corrective measures to be implemented when the surveillance reveals that a critical point for fraud control is no longer under control. Apply verification procedures in order to confirm that the system is functioning effectively. Build up a file which includes all procedures and reports concerning these provisions and their implementation. Let's conclude the Haccp, Vaccp and Taccp system in food safety. Practices for Haccp are well defined, where Vaccp and Taccp are much more interrelated. Essentially, the three together help us to ensure the safety of our product from both intentional and unintentional contamination. Haccp focuses on protecting product from the unintentional, where Taccp and Vaccp focus intentional contamination and preventing dishonest conduct. Using these three food and beverage management system correctly and effectively will ensure to deliver a safe final product to the consumer. Now it's time to conclude this presentation. Thank you so much for your interest and attention. If you have any queries, you can put comments under this video. Thank you.